I never thought my marriage would end like this. When Ted, my husband of 2 years, suddenly said he wanted a divorce, I was completely blindsided. We had problems, sure, but I never imagined he'd go this far. I thought our struggles were normal, things we could work through together. But standing in front of me, with that smug, satisfied grin, he told me that he planned to live in the high-rise apartment I inherited from my father, with his mother. "I want a divorce," he said flatly. I couldn't believe it. My heart pounded, my mind raced. What did he mean by that? Was he serious? Was this all part of some larger plan he'd been concocting behind my back? The apartment I inherited was something special, something that tied me to my family. How could Ted, the man I once loved, think he could just take it from me? I had no words. I just stood there trying to make sense of it all, while Ted's smirk told me everything I needed to know. He was serious. This wasn't just a fight. This was the end. Ted's demand for the apartment didn't come out of nowhere, though. In the months leading up to his shocking announcement, I had noticed subtle changes in him. He became increasingly fixated on my inheritance, asking me strange questions about the apartment and making remarks about how nice it would be to live there. At first, I dismissed it, thinking he was just excited about the idea of moving to a better place. But soon, it became clear that Ted's excitement wasn't just about us. It was about him, and more disturbingly, about his mother. His mom, who had become a constant presence in our lives, was always around. She came over more often than I liked, and each time she visited, she would criticize everything about how I managed our household. From the way I cleaned the kitchen to how I folded the laundry, nothing I did seemed to meet her standards. Ted would brush off my complaints, insisting that his mother was just lonely after losing her husband years ago. "She's just trying to help," he would say, never understanding how suffocating it felt to have her constantly judging me. But now, with Ted's latest declaration, everything started to make sense. This wasn't just about loneliness. This was about control. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. Ted and his mother had been planning this all along. For months, she had been pushing to move in with us, and Ted had been laying the groundwork without me even realizing it. His sudden desire for a divorce wasn't because our marriage had irreparably broken down. It was because he saw an opportunity to take something valuable from me. And that opportunity came in the form of the high-rise apartment. The apartment that was more than just a place to live, it was a symbol of my father's hard work, a gift he left behind for me. I remember the day my father passed away. It was a quiet, peaceful moment. He had been ill for a long time, and while his death was expected, it still shook me to my core. After the funeral, when my mother decided to move to a quieter place in the suburbs, she gave me the apartment. "This is for you, Stacy," she said, "something from your father." The apartment was close to the city, spacious and perfect for someone like me, who was juggling a demanding career. I had never thought Ted would see it as his ticket to a new life with his mother. Ted's audacity shocked me, but the more he talked, the more I realized he truly believed he could take the apartment. He didn't just want a divorce. He wanted to walk away with everything. "I'll just take the property and live here with my mom," he said confidently, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How had we gotten here? 2 years ago, when we first got married, things were so different. We had met through a matchmaking service, something my father had urged me to try. At first, I was hesitant. I was focused on my career, and the thought of getting married wasn't on my radar. But my father was sick, and his wish to see me settled down weighed heavily on me. So I agreed to meet Ted. He seemed nice enough, kind, hardworking, and driven. He was a year younger than me, but we both shared a passion for our careers. We clicked almost immediately, and before I knew it, we were married. It seemed like the right decision at the time. Our parents were thrilled, and for a while, I was happy too. But things began to change when Ted's mother started coming around more often. At first, I didn't mind Ted's mother visiting. I knew she was lonely, and Ted seemed to genuinely care about her well-being. But soon, her visits became more frequent, and with each one, she made her presence more and more felt in our lives. She criticized everything I did, from the way I managed the household to how I spent my weekends. She would take groceries from our kitchen without asking and make snide remarks about how I wasn't taking proper care of Ted. I tried to talk to Ted about it, Azrania, but he always defended her. "She's just trying to help," he'd say dismissively, as if I was the one overreacting. It wasn't long before I started dreading the weekends, knowing that she would inevitably show up, unannounced, to invade our space once again. I felt trapped in my own home, unable to escape her judgmental gaze. And as Ted's loyalty to his mother grew, his affection for me seemed to fade. He spent more time with her and less with me. I was no longer his priority. His mother was. And now, standing in front of me with that smug look, he made it clear. I was no longer a part of his future. The apartment was all he cared about. When Ted first suggested moving into the high-rise apartment, I thought it was a good idea. It was closer to the city, more convenient for both of us, and it had sentimental value for me. But now, I could see that Ted's excitement wasn't about us building a life together. It was about him and his mother taking over something that was rightfully mine. The more he talked about his plans, the more I realized just how far gone he was. He had no intention of compromising, no desire to work things out between us. "You can stay in the apartment for now," he said with a sly grin. "But once the divorce is finalized, it's mine." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How could he be so cold, so calculating? I had supported him through everything, stood by him when his job got tough, and now he was treating me like nothing more than an obstacle in his path. "Ted, you can't just take the apartment," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "It's my inheritance. It doesn't automatically become yours in a divorce." But Ted wasn't listening. He waved away my words, confident that he could manipulate the situation to his advantage. Ted's arrogance was infuriating. He truly believed he could take what wasn't his, and no matter how much I tried to explain the law to him, he refused to listen. "That's a joke," he said dismissively, when I explained that inheritance doesn't get divided in a divorce. "I'm not falling for that." It was clear that he thought I was trying to hold onto the apartment for myself, but in reality, I was simply stating the facts. Inheritance laws were on my side, but Ted didn't care about legality. He was determined to get his way. His condescending attitude only solidified my decision. I didn't need this toxicity in my life anymore. I had spent too long trying to make our marriage work, trying to be understanding of his complicated relationship with his mother. But now, it was over. "Fine, Ted," I said, my voice steady. "Let's get divorced." He looked surprised at how easily I agreed, but I was done fighting. I was ready to let him go. We printed out the divorce papers that night, and without a second thought, I signed them. As Ted rushed off to file them at City Hall, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Our marriage was over, and I was free. The days that followed our divorce were strangely peaceful. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe again. Ted moved out, and his mother stopped showing up at our apartment. It felt like a fresh start, a chance to rebuild my life without the constant presence of judgment and manipulation. But as I began to settle into my new routine, I couldn't shake the feeling that Ted wasn't done with me yet. His obsession with the high-rise apartment lingered in the back of my mind, and I knew it was only a matter of time before he tried something. Sure enough, a few weeks later, Ted's mother showed up at my door. She was furious, banging on the door and demanding that I hand over the apartment. "You've got no right to keep it," she shouted. "Ted's worked hard for this, and you owe him." I calmly explained that the apartment was part of my inheritance, something my father had left for me. It wasn't up for negotiation. But Ted's mother wouldn't listen. "You're selfish," she spat. "You don't deserve it. We do." I closed the door in her face, but her words echoed in my mind. This wasn't over. After that incident, I decided it was time to take action. I consulted with a lawyer to make sure everything was in order with the inheritance and the apartment. I wanted to be certain that Ted and his mother couldn't come after it legally. Thankfully, the lawyer reassured me that the apartment was safe. It was solely mine, and no court could force me to hand it over. But Ted's behavior continued to escalate. He started showing up at the apartment late at night, pounding on the door and demanding to be let in. Each time I refused to open the door, ignoring his threats and pleas. One night, though, he managed to wedge his foot in the door before I could close it. "You can't keep me out," he yelled, his eyes wild with desperation. "I deserve that apartment, and you're going to give it to me." I stood my ground, refusing to back down. "I've already told you, Ted," I said firmly. "This apartment is mine. You need to leave or I'll call the police." Ted laughed at my threat, but when I pulled out my phone and started dialing, his expression changed. Panicking, he pulled his foot back and stormed off. After that encounter, Ted stopped showing up for a while. I hoped he had finally accepted the reality of the situation, but deep down, I knew it wasn't over. A few months later, an envelope appeared in my mailbox with no return address. I knew immediately who it was from. Ted had written me a letter. I hesitated before opening it, unsure if I wanted to read whatever excuses or demands he had for me now. But curiosity got the better of me. Inside, Ted poured out his frustrations, explaining how everything had fallen apart for him since our divorce. His new girlfriend, someone he had hoped would move into the high-rise apartment with him and his mother, had left him when she realized he couldn't provide the luxury life he had promised. Ted had also racked up significant debt, buying her expensive gifts in a desperate attempt to keep her happy. His financial troubles had spiraled out of control, and he had even lost his job after bragging to his colleagues about the apartment that wasn't his. Now, he was at rock bottom, begging me for money. "Just $10,000, he wrote. "We could even start over if you want." As I read Ted's letter, a mixture of disbelief and frustration filled me. How could he still be so delusional? Even after everything he'd put me through, he had the audacity to ask me for help, financial help no less. Did he really think I'd be willing to bail him out of the mess he had created for himself? His plea for money, combined with his suggestion that we could start over, only deepened my resolve to cut him out of my life completely. I had no intention of replying to his letter, and certainly no intention of giving him a single dime. Ted had made his choices, and now he had to live with the consequences. I tossed the letter into the trash, feeling a sense of finality as I did. But I also realized that as long as I stayed in this apartment, Ted would never truly leave me alone. The high-rise was a constant reminder of what he had lost and what he would never have. I needed to move on, both mentally and physically. So, I made a decision. I would sell the apartment, the one my father had left me, and start fresh in a new place. It was time to move on. Selling the apartment wasn't an easy decision. It had sentimental value. It was a gift from my father, a place filled with memories. But after everything that had happened, I knew it was the right choice. I consulted with a real estate agent and began the process of selling the high-rise apartment. My mother supported my decision, reassuring me that my father would have wanted me to do whatever made me happy. And so, I moved forward, finding a new high-rise apartment in an even better location. It was expensive, but after years of hard work and savings, I was ready to invest in my future. More importantly, I didn't tell Ted where I was moving. I changed my phone number, cut all ties, and left no trace for him to follow. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. Free from Ted, free from his mother, and free from the shadow of our toxic marriage. My new apartment was a fresh start, a place where I could focus on my career and rebuild my life. As I stood on the balcony of my new home, looking out at the city skyline, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. This was my life now, on my own terms.